There's so many rules in 40k, hundreds of events, and constant updates. Skip the learning curve of Warhammer and join the pros. Art of War is led by multiple world champions with decades of success. We teach clinics, stream games, and inspire you to succeed at your favorite hobby. Join our global community of gamers just like you.
Hello everyone, it's a Tuesday, it's time for a tier list on a Tuesday, and we have a very special new addition to our Tuesday tier list series. I guess I tried to think of a T word there. We got Matt Robbo from across the pond. How you doing, man?
I'm all good. I'm glad to be on and talk crap about Imperial Knights, because I've been having a lot of fun with these guys recently, and yeah, this book is so good in compared to the old version. It's so I kind of looked and was like, oh, cool, Knights get stuff. And I played some games and went, oh, Knights have layers. This is a really nice change.
Yeah.
Rather than just stomp, stomp, smash, smash.
Absolutely. I mean, it's some of the most, rules in a book in 9th edition. They just have, 7 data sheets. But they have tons of rules after rules after rules, noble households and exalted courts and bondsmen and a lot of that. So really, really exciting that they actually have rules and they're not just slamming stats on the table.
Yeah. I've also really found it exciting when you go, okay, so this rule is going to combo with this rule, but if I do this, then this and this happens. No, I don't want to do that. I want to do something different there. Because all the little bits they've added, even though they all do their own thing, have those little links together, which is really cool. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Onion Knights. Layers upon layers of Knights.
Yep. And you don't get to use all of the rules in the book at once, which means that you have to pick and choose what exactly you get to use.
Yeah, so it's just so much more engaging, I found. Reading through it going, okay, you've got 4 sets of oaths, and each oath works in a different way. And then depending which knight you take, different oaths work better. And you have different traditions. Before you had, I'm Imperial or Mechanicus, I get some strats. You still get that, but there's just so much more interaction and little tweaking you can do to make these, 10 codex data sheets plus friends. Just do so much more and feel like a proper army now, especially with the secondaries. Yeah,
we got some friends in here from Imperial Armor, which, largely the main codex has supplanted them, but there's still some gems in there because they just give you a bunch of old data, or a bunch of data sheets that were from before the codex came out. So it's very interesting to look at. And we have them all lined up here for your viewing pleasure. And we have 5 different categories. We have tournament staples, strong choice, perfectly balanced, flawed choice, and FAQ me. And so we'll put them in here, and we'll tier list them. How's that sound?
If we did otherwise, I think we'd have been upsetting a lot of people.
Yep. All right, we're done, folks. We're all going home now.
Yeah, everything's imperfectly balanced. We're good.
All right, so first up, I think this is the Acheron. I think this is the Cerastus Knight Acheron, if I had to guess. Yes, it's got the Acheron Flame Cannon. That's what we've got right here. So what do you know about this little guy?
So this little guy, I remember, used to be bonkers. Now you've got a heavy 2d6, strength 7 -2, 3 damage, auto hitting, which is decent.
Yeah, not a bad gun.
I think you straight away just give it AP3 in the current meta, and it becomes a decent gun. AP3 damage 3, and AP2 is a bit Yeah.
It's a bit meh. Strength 7 on a main gun is also a bit, just a little bit meh. You know, you're wounding vehicles on 4s, and you're giving, you know, Imperial, or you're giving armor content vehicles 4s usually. And by the end of that, if you roll a little low on the 2d6, you've done nothing. Like, you've done 0 damage.
Yeah, I don't mind it being strength 7 too much, because it's also with like a heavy bolter and stuff. It's not really like your melters, your battle cannons, etc. have your extra strength there. It seems to me it's more of a just unit killer, but it's the problem, like you're saying, 2d6 shots. Anything that's been updated now tends to be 6 plus 2d3 or something like that. And at that point, I'd go, okay, this is quite interesting, having like guaranteed 8 shots a turn, decent strength into stuff, okay AP, because it's still got some decent combat.
It's all right. I mean, it's, you know, 4 attacks at damage 6, or, you know, 12 attacks at damage D3, AP 2.
Yeah, probably needs to be 2 damage again, just to update it with all the other bits and pieces.
Probably does. I mean, it's got a twin heavy bolter, and the flame cannon. Honestly, the flame cannon would feel really good if it was like 6 plus D6. I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
If it was like the whatever it's called, the Tyrannifex with the acid spray.
Yeah, just any of the newer books.
Exactly. It's also very, very pricey. It's 480 base, and it doesn't have a bondsman oath or anything like that.
Yeah, that's probably a weird thing with a lot of the Forge World Knights, that they kind of do feel a little unloved because they don't do any of these other things. I don't know. Do you think they should give them all their own individual bondsman stuff, or just make them a lot cheaper to account for it? Make them little solo wrecking balls, or maybe make them just free blade kind of style, one-man army things.
Yeah, I think I'd be okay with them just being like stats that you can add into your army. Like, knights are very synergistic, and then you can just be like, yeah, but like 400 points of my army is just going to be a stat stick that hits you, which is kind of what the Magera is. I don't want to give them all their own unique bondsman oaths, because then there's going to be some broken thing in there.
Yeah, there'll be something silly.
There'll be something silly. You can give them copies of the existing bondsman oaths. I think that would be very interesting. Like, if we gave that one maybe the Warden bondsman oath or something, because it's kind of the same, and if you give a different one, like the Paladin bondsman oath, for example.
Yes, it's like the more combat focused. You get your advance and charge off to support things moving up with it.
Yeah, but I would say without bondsman at 480, the damage isn't really there, and it doesn't offer any support. So I'd put it probably in flawed choice.
You could argue FAQ me, because we'd said a lot of the Forge World stuff just needs that little bit of love and an update.
Yeah, FAQ me here is for stuff that's just like irredeemable.
Just needs the FAQ.
Yeah, this is just like, I would never take it. That's FAQ me. Flawed choice, like, it does its job. It's just a little
Yeah, it just needing some love. So that it's flawed, needing love.
It does. All right. Oh my God, what is this? Cerastus Knight, Acastus Knight, Asterius?
So
I'm not sure. It's a big one that you never see. It's like one of the 30 wound ones, I think.
Yeah, so the Asterius with its double Volkites potentially there. I'm just going through the rest of them to make sure none of the other ones.
Styrix. I think it's the Porphyrion.
Is the Porphyrion not the even bigger one?
No, this is the Porphyrion.
Okay.
That one down there is the Porphyrion. So this one, I believe, is the Acastus Knight Asterius. Which makes sense that Asterius would be at the front.
Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking it was there. Just the images aren't super clear, so apologies to anyone who is also struggling to make these out. I think they get a lot cleaner later on.
Yeah, it's also hard because like I've never seen one of these on the table even once.
Yeah, I've seen the one below it, but I've never seen this one.
Yeah, which I mean, so let's go over what it does. It moves 8, ballistic skill 3, strength toughness 8, 30 wounds, which is impressive, with only 3 attacks and a 3-up save. It has 2 Asterius Volkite Culverins, which are each heavy 4, strength 6, AP 0, damage 2, and wound rolls of 6 to a mortal wound. It has a Karachnos Mortar Battery, which is 3d3, strength 5, AP 1, damage 1, blast. And then wound rolls of 2+ are always successful, except against vehicles or Titanic. And then it's got 2 twin conversion beam cannons, which, it better have some good guns coming up. It's conversion beamer, so up to 24 inches, it's 2d3 shots. It has 2 of these, so it'll be 4d3 shots at strength 12, AP 1, damage 2, blast. Over 24, but under 48, is 4d3 shots at 14, AP 2, damage 4. And over 48, it's 4d3 shots at strength 16, AP 3, damage 6.
Yeah, the main thing that stands out here to me is this guy is not designed for your standard 40k game. Because looking at those guns on these smaller boards we've got now, you don't actually get any decent firepower unless you're on the table next to where you're playing. Because what you don't want is a 400+ point model going, cool, I've got 4d3 damage 2 shots with AP 1.
Buddy, this thing is 750 points.
You definitely don't want 750 points going, I've got 4d3 at damage 2 AP 1.
Yeah, a glorified autocannon.
If you were playing like an Apocalypse game, then you're playing on a 20-foot by 10-foot table or something crazy. This guy's probably pretty good.
Yeah, it's also if you don't really care how many points you're paying. Like it's if it's Apocalypse and you're like, oh, we're playing 10,000 points aside. It's like, sure, we'll throw in an Asterius.
But yeah, I don't think we can put this anywhere apart from flawed.
I'm putting this down in trash tier. FAQ me is trash tier. It's just like, get the hell out. 750 points for something that's going to be a, as I said, glorified autocannon most of the time is just insane.
Yeah, like, I could understand it being those points for those large, silly games, but I don't think a lot of people playing the large Apocalypse style other kind of games are really caring or abusing things too much, because that's normally a bit more of a casual style game. So if this was a lot cheaper, maybe end up too cheap in that kind of scale, but do people care that much at that point compared to the majority of games that get played? I know a lot of people will play casual, but for the scale of that, it's probably not as common, because you need to dedicate a lot of time for those size games.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the thing that keeps getting me, like, if you look at it, you go, oh, it kind of does this, it kind of does that, and then you're like, it's 750 points for a knight. It doesn't actually shoot that much harder than other knights unless you're over 48 inches, which is not real. No. You can engineer it, but like your opponent kind of has to help you.
Yeah, especially with terrain being a thing now and line of sight and such, it's just, you're not really going to get that much use out of that. Like, you compare it to a Castellan, whose guns are probably better, it's less points, and yeah, you take that one. Yeah,
you just would. It's like a Castellan at like 300 more points or 200 more points or something. I don't know. The Castellan's like 600 and change, so it's like 150 more.
Yeah, but then it just seems worse.
It really does, doesn't it? All right, so that's firmly in FAQ me. That's in trash tier. Get the heck out of here. All right, we're up next. We've got... It's not the Asterius. It's not the... I believe it's the Atrapos. Yes, I believe it's the Atrapos with the Atrapos Las Cutter. Yeah. Cerastus Knight Atrapos. So, this bad boy is a little expensive. He's got 26 wounds like the rest of the Cerastus Knights. Weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 3, moves 12. Atrapos Las Cutter is 1 shot at 9-inch range. Strength 12, AP 4, damage 6. Reroll wounds against monsters and vehicles. It's got a Graviton Singularity Cannon, 36-inch range. Either 4 shots at strength 8, AP 3, damage 3, or D6 plus 4 shots, which, you know, that's nice. D6 plus 4 is a good number. At strength 14, AP 4, damage 3, and then every time you select this profile to shoot, on a 1 through 3, they take D3 mortal wounds. And then in melee, their las cutter is strength 3 attacks apiece, strength 6 AP2 damage 3, or strength 12 AP4 damage 6. Reroll wounds against monsters and vehicles.
See, that seems decent.
Yeah, it gets +1 to hit Titanic as well.
Yep, it has a 5-up impulse save built in as well, which is nice. It's not just from ranged.
It does. So in combat, it's not, which is something that has come up more in the new book.
Yeah.
Because it's harder to get invuln saves in combat than it was. I mean, it's harder because you can't just jam 3 Mageras and have invulns in combat on everybody.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I quite like it. The problem is, which I found with a lot of the other big knights, ballistic skill 3, weapon skill 3, 3-up save.
Yep.
It still doesn't quite just do enough that you'd want to take them, whereas the little ones you get 3 for the same points and end up doing more a lot of the time. But I can't really fault the profile there because you've got decent AP, a decent number of shots, good strength, damage free is fine into a lot of things in the game.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
A lot of the time, your big guns that are like damage 6 or something are 1 shot, 2 shots, whereas this is D6 plus 4. You're gonna kill a couple of models out of a squad when you shoot it. And then the melee, again, is decent. So it seems like if it had a little update in line with everything else, you'd probably consider these, depending on the points.
Yeah, like it's not bad. Its gun does hit, right? It does D3 mortal wounds to itself every time it shoots, which is a little unfortunate, but definitely a price you're willing to pay for, D6 plus 4 shots at strength 14, AP4 damage 3. And then in combat it does hit. Now its melee profile's a little outdated, just a little bit, but it still hits hard. Still has an invuln save in combat. I like it actually quite a lot. And it has the extra 2 wounds, which offsets the D3 mortal wounds for 1 activation. I think it's not bad. I think it's a little expensive. It's 520 points, which is you're paying a premium over a Magera, and that feels wrong.
Yeah, you drop it like 100 points and be like, ooh, okay.
Yeah.
I consider this like, it's not even bad at like crazy at those points. It just needs the points dropping just a chunk there.
Yeah, I would probably say like 440, 450 would be about right, but 520 seems a little high. I'm going to put it, what do you think about like at the top of flawed choice?
Yeah, that I was just going to say. It's either it's not quite perfectly balanced because it's a Forge World problem.
Yeah.
But it's not a million miles off being useful.
All right, let's go to the Codex for a second, and let's talk about Canis Rex.
So Rex is quite funny. I actually tried writing a list with the old book with Rex, just because you get a guy who can do action sometimes. Never really that useful, but it could come into play in clutch moments.
Well, you can still do the center of the table action with Lord Hector when he gets out.
Yeah.
Because it just says he has to be an Imperial Knights character, and he has the keyword, the faction keyword Imperial Knights, and he's a character. So, Canis walks up, drops 5 points on Renew the Oaths, and then dies, and then Lord Hector gets out, hopefully doesn't roll a 1, because that would suck, and then walks up to the center of the table and gets a 4 on Renew the Oaths, and you're like, okay, it's pretty good. Probably getting a 15 at that point.
Yeah, and he's an interesting model. I've kind of looked at it a couple of times and gone, okay, yeah, maybe you could put him in there. He's a free blade, but again, he's got he does the buffs, like the chaplain kind of things, because he knows his knightly teachings.
Yep.
But he doesn't have a bondsman. And it makes sense because he's a free blade kind of thing, so he's doing his own thing, not around everyone else.
Yeah, the Preceptor doesn't have a bondsman either, so I think he's just meant to be a big Preceptor.
Yeah, so he's got an okay gun. So little short range when you want it to be doing its bigger damage. But
Yeah.
24 isn't terrible. 24 with D6 shots, though. It's probably a bit too swingy.
D6 shots is like 1/3 of the time that gun does nothing because you rolled a 1 or a 2.
And then missed. But he does have a 2-up.
He does hit on 2s, and he does, in shooting and combat, get exploding 6s to hit, which is dope. Against non-Imperium, but still. When you're up against Necrons or Eldar or Tyranids, 6s to hit, that's going to be 2 hits. And he hits on 2s, and he rerolls a hit, wound, charge, or saving throw once a battle round. So he gets a lot of extra abilities tacked onto a Preceptor. And apparently, in a Freeblade Lance, he can take an Exalted Court upgrade, because there's no reason he cannot.
Yeah, so it's really interesting, and I love the random little guy model that jumps out. It's just quite funny, that model running around, surrounded by all these knights, and just going, "Woo! I got this." But
yeah, I think that Lord Hector is actually pretty useful because, as I said, he does literally just walk within 6 inches of the center and go, that's a 4 on, Renew the Oaths, and nobody else needs to, run up and sacrifice himself to do it. So that is very, very handy.
So we do have a little question there as well.
Yep. We got a...
House Tyrannus.
Yep. $1.99 super chat from Dr. Cosmos. Thank you so much. Asking about, as you said, thoughts on Canis Rex in Tyrannus. What do you think, Matt?
So, I may be wrong here, but because he's Freeblade, he's kind of just running his own thing. So he's not really getting your, most of your buffs there. Because a lot of stuff where you've got your Questor allegiance and your household, etc., he is just, he's his own thing. So it helps having the rest of the stuff there.
Yeah, he doesn't do anything that a preceptor... He's just like a nice preceptor, like a good preceptor. He's not going to do anything super unique. I believe his... I'm trying to find them somewhere in this book. I believe his chants do work on Tyrannus things. Yes, so Canis Rex as a Freeblade can use the Knightly Teachings on... Tyrannus Knights. He's the only one who can as a Freeblade. So you do get him in there. I think it's fine. I really do, but I don't really know how much more than a Preceptor he's going to provide, but he's like a slightly better Preceptor for 20 more points. And I really can't say anything bad about that.
Yeah, considering it's so few points extra, and you get this weird little ability that of this extra character potentially running around, and because it's got the weird bits and pieces, it's not considered destroyed either until the model's destroyed. So you're not giving up a weird bring it down potentially if you just hide this model somewhere, because the unit's still alive. So it's a bit. Yeah. That's a bit of a weird one there.
Yeah, that's a bit odd, and also he hits much harder in combat than a regular Preceptor. Regular Preceptor, I believe, is 4 attacks.
He gets
4 attacks. He gets 5. Preceptors hit on 3s. He hits on 2s. He has exploding 6s to hit against non-Imperium. So he just hits like a whole level harder than a Preceptor. I think he's probably better than a Preceptor, but a Preceptor can take an Exalted Court upgrade, and Canis Rex cannot unless he's in a Freeblade Lance. So it's roughly even to me, honestly.
Rereading that, I'm thinking he does give it the bring it down still, but there's some of the weird things that potentially don't give up. So there's some weird interactions like kill a unit in a battle round or something.
Yeah, but, interesting.
I'd probably stick him in the bottom end of balanced, because again, you're not quite seeing them, but if you saw it, you're like, it's not a bad choice.
I mean, I think he's probably I think he's definitely in perfectly balanced. I think he's up near the top of perfectly balanced. Like he's good. I just don't think at 440 he's kind of cheap for a knight, but at 440 every unit needs to justify its place.
yeah, it's not quite enough punch. It's not quite enough buffs. It's a nice bit mix of the two, so it's definitely doing something that you can make use of in games.
Yeah. I mean, he's good in... He knows 3 and recounts 2, which I believe the Preceptor knows 2. No, the Preceptor knows 3 and chants 2 as well. So he's just a Preceptor that hits a little harder and can't take can't take Exalted Court upgrades. Yeah. I think in a Freebird Lance, I think he's actually pretty good.
Yeah, I could definitely see that there.
Yeah.
Ooh, so what's up next then?
We got the Castellan. We've got the Castellan. Still way better than the Valiant. We'll get to the Valiant in a while. But
he's right at the end.
Yeah, right underneath it. The Castellan is the theoretically long range one, whereas the Valiant is theoretically the closer range one. What they both work out to be is they both kind of are the same range because you need to move to get line of sight in 40k.
Well, you can run 3 Valiants up the board and start punching stuff pretty effectively.
You can. I mean, how many points is that? A lot is the answer.
Oh yeah, it's a lot.
That's your whole army.
I've seen it done, and it's good fun.
Oh, I'm sure it is. The Castellan is 625 base. I believe he goes up to 610 base, goes up to 625 if you take the 2 twin Siegebreaker cannons, which at that point I probably would.
Yeah, I like the Shieldbreaker cannons because it just gives him a little bit more of everything. Because I think the Castellan's solid, but the meta and the kind of the game isn't right for it at the moment. So it was super strong when you had all this big stuff running around, which you're starting to see more of now. But with the way the terrain is at a lot of events and a lot of little combat units running around, like your sisters, Dracari, all that kind of thing, he's kind of wasted into those. Great into the knights.
Yeah, he really did well also when there weren't a lot of big models with invulns. Like Tyranids, if you shoot any of their big boys, they're going to have like a 4-up.
Yeah.
Especially for the turn when it really matters. You know, Mortarion has a 4-up. Bellicor, Bloodthirster has a 4-up. Lord of Change has a 3-up. So you're now against big stuff. You're not going to just be connecting and then they just take damage. They're going to get a invuln save. They're almost certainly going to reroll a failed save, and so the Volcano Lance changing to D3 shots, even though it's D6 plus 8 damage, I think it got a little weaker because your opponent can just reroll a save to try to really prevent the Castellan from doing damage. The Plasma Decimator still bangs, but you do take 2 mortal wounds every time you roll a hit roll of 1. For each hit roll of 1. So you could totally roll, 8 shots, 4 ones, and just take 8 mortal wounds to the face.
Well, I thought you were about to say 8 shots, 8 ones, because as soon as it matters, you go, haha, watch this.
Death. Yeah.
Oh, he's done it. He's done it in style.
A little more realistically would be like 8 shots, 2 twos, 3 ones. So you hit, 3 times, and you did 6 mortal wounds to yourself. Which absolutely blows.
When the book first came out, a few people looking at the Castellan going, ooh, this guy could be terrifying. Once you combo with a strat for every 6th wound does the damage as mortals. And I've seen quite a few run with that still and just give that a go. Because you calculate the targeting, and all of a sudden you're D6 plus 8 mortal wounds. Because there's ways you can guarantee a 6 to hit.
Yep, there's multiple ways actually. Yeah.
So it does make it quite interesting. And okay, that's as soon as someone's rocking that, you go in reasonably scary. But in some matchups, there's not the targets for it.
Yep, and the combo to make that strat free can't be used on a Knight Dominus. It has to be used on a Knight Questoris, which we'll get to when we get to the Crusader. The Crusader can make this free once, but the Castellan not only pays 4 for it, but can never make it free.
Yeah, so it's a crazy combo, but all of a sudden, if that's a possibility, then you have to be fully wary of that and respect it. But that one turn it goes off, Cool. Right. Now rush it. It's not doing that again.
Yep. And also, I can guarantee you what's going to happen when you want to do this is you're going to, you can generate the ability to flip multiple dice to 6s, too. But what's going to happen is you're going to roll one shot, and you're going to miss with it. And then you're like, oh, well, that didn't work at all. Or you roll two shots, so you're like, great, and you hit with one of them. And like that turns into d6 plus 8, but you're like, that doesn't really kill what I want. I wanted, 2d6 plus 16, but I only got one hit, or I got no hits because they're -1 to hit or something. Just d3 shots is super unreliable. If it was 3, like, okay, that's better. But, I still don't know if hitting on 3s with no rerolls and then wounding on 2s with no rerolls is better, like, than it was. I don't know. I think the Crusader is better for all your calculated targeting needs. The Call's Wrath for the Plasma Decimator does get rid of the 2 mortal wounds every time you roll 1, but it does lock you in at Strength 8. So no getting to Strength 9, just your Strength 8 now, 2d6, Strength 8, AP4, damage 3. Which is a good profile, but it used to be Strength 9.
I think it's solid. I don't think there's... the main problem I have with it is if you're taking it, you probably need to have another big knight if you're taking multiple small ones after that to give them some of the buffs they need to keep going. And then if you do that, you don't get enough potentially that pushes the middle of the board, because if you risk the other large knight, then you can lose all those buffs very easily. This guy doesn't really have the punch to be pushing mid-board and controlling the zones there. You must kind of be holding back around the edges to not just get chewed up with crap.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen people... It doesn't just have the Volcano Lance. It has the Plasma Decimator, probably has 2 twin Siege Breaker cannons, and 2 Shield Breaker missiles, and then 2 twin Melta-Guns. Like, it has a lot of guns. So, it does hit hard. I've seen people using Forge Master on it for -1 damage while it's in your deployment zone. So that can make it very, very tough. I've seen people do good work with that. In fact, if I were to take it, that's probably what I would do. I'd probably take Forge Master just so it,
Yeah, like the bonus you do have with it, like you say, is it probably gets to do its things most of the game because it's not really a priority due to the amount of wounds it's got, the toughness it's got, and it has a base 2-up save, which is tasty. But if the meta were to swing around and be a different state, then I think it's okay. I just think it's a little bit subpar as it stands.
Yeah, I would say it falls like probably towards the bottom of perfectly balanced or somewhere in perfectly balanced. It's like a fine unit, but I'm not excited to get out of bed for it.
Yeah, if you take it, it's not a bad choice. I just think there are better. So yeah, I put it in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Because if you make it too good, when its time comes and the meta rolls back around to its prime targets, maybe when Guard come out, you're going to see Russes everywhere, and it'll be like, oh, cool, this is really good now.
Yeah, it's like you're dead. Yeah, basically, it's good in a meta where people sit back and lob shots at each other from across the board, because it does that really well. But with obscuring terrain and your opponents being, alive human beings with a pulse who are going to move their models away from your line of sight, it's a little hard. And it also only moves 8, which, used to move 10. Just harder to get lines of sight with it.
Yeah, there's little ways around that, because I think you can go Raven to give it a little bit more speed, but I still don't think that makes it any better than where we have it right now.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. Yeah. Okay, let's pull up the next one, the Cerastus Knight Castigator. All right, we're back in Forge World, boys. All right, so this guy, 26 wounds, 12-inch move, same as the other Cerastus Knights. Weapon skill, ballistic skill 3. And it has the Castigator Bolt Cannon and the Tempest Warblade. So the Castigator Bolt Cannon is 16 shots, the strength 6, AP2, damage 2. And the Tempest Warblade is... You have Titanic Feet as well, but it makes 2 hit rolls instead of 1, so 8 attacks, at strength 14, or strength plus 6, so strength 14, AP 3, damage 3. And you know what I like about this one, Matt?
It's
not a sweep profile.
Yes.
Which means that Noble Combatants works on the Tempest Warblade.
Yeah, you get a lot of it at the strats and little things combo quite nicely there.
Yes. So I actually think the Knight Castigator is pretty decent as a stat brick. Largely because if you take it in a Freeblade Lance, or you take it as a Freeblade, and you give it Noble Combatants, it actually has quite a bit of damage.
Yeah, like even its shooting, it's 16 shots. So even though it's only AP2, you fire it into a squad of something, 12 hits, decent strength. So 8 wounds, still 4 Marines dead, roughly. Could easily just go and pick up a squad of 5. Charge something else. But
I mean, I'm very sad right now. I've heard that it was FAQ'd and the Castigator doesn't work with Noble Combatants anymore.
Then
RIP.
FAQ me. Get rid of that.
It's not. I think it's in flawed choice. Like, its stats are okay. Its gun is okay. Its combat is okay. I was ready to put it up here and perfectly balanced, like towards the top end is a Noble Combatant stat stick, but that doesn't work. It's fallen down here, I think. Somewhere around the other Cerastus Knights with like a decent gun and like okay combat.
I think I'm starting to see a trend here.
Yeah, the Forge World Knights are a bit of a bummer, unfortunately. They just need a facelift. Their stats came out at the beginning of 9th edition, and so they are stuck there. 460 points for a guy that hits hits on 3s with no rerolls and has like 8 attacks is just not it.
Yeah, they're very much based on the old book.
Yeah.
Which they just need that little refresh.
But let's talk the Crusader, huh? This guy went from 0 to hero.
Yeah, the Crusader I think is great.
Yeah. I also think the Crusader is real good.
Like we were saying before, you've got the opportunity to dump a load of mortals onto something. He has a bondsman ability, which is improved ballistic skill by 1.
Yep.
Which is okay.
Yeah.
You can get it for multiple things. Your Helverin's really pew-pew. Your Melter's a little bit more reliant.
Yeah.
But he just does good stuff.
And it's not that expensive. Kitted out with a full ability and like a top gun or whatnot, you're looking at like 520 or so, but that's with like a Storm Spear rocket pod and a Melta cannon and a chain cannon. And that does really good work. And the combo here is you take Master Tactician on him, and you take Princeps on a Paladin or something else if you want. But I like a Paladin there. And you give the Bondsman Oath with Princeps to the Crusader. So now it's rerolling 1s to hit and wound. And the Master Tactician, once a game, lets you make a strat free for something under the effects of a Bondsman Oath. And then you make calculated targeting free, and you lay the smackdown on your opponent. It also lets you take an additional trait, so you take a reroll, a wound, or damage, machine focus. And the smackdown is laid. I think I killed, because I took an Errant, so it didn't even have the chain cannon. I took an Errant with Judgment on the top to a tournament, and I did that combo with it, and I shot at a Lord of Skulls, and I clean killed it. Just, you're dead.
Yeah, you'd only need 1 or 2 with that main gun there, and just goes, cool, that's half of you dead, and now I'll roll everything else.
Yeah, it's a great calculated targeting target compared to a Castellan, and it's just better at the roll and much cheaper. And so I think it's just a way better Castellan. Like, that's really all it is. It's just way better. It moves faster. It shoots like roughly comparably and is like 120 points cheaper if fully kitted out, or it's like 160 points cheaper if you left the top missile at home. So I'm actually a big fan. I think it's going to land right at the top of strong choice, or even like the bottom of tournament staple.
I'd have it in strong for me.
Yeah.
I don't think it's quite pushing the tournament staples to want it in every list. It's kind of one of those where I'm like, once I've took one or two other things, do I want to put Crusader in there? Yes, no, maybe. So definitely up in strong somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I've talked about how cool it is, it doesn't always make my lists because it's expensive and you want to include enough board control. And then, are you going to build a strategy around one model? Possibly. It's not a bad strategy, but also possibly not. So I think top of strong choice is where I put it.
Around one model. You're building it around potentially the next model or one later on.
Oh, yeah, the Errant. I do think you want some kind of big shooting threat. Tyrant of Ruin, $1.99 super chat says Canis Rex is definitely a strong choice. I don't know if I 100% agree with that. I get what you mean. Like he's good, but I mean you can't include like every knight that does a thing that is like decent.
Yeah, I think if he were a strong choice, I think he'd be the bottom end. Whereas I think top end of perfectly balanced is probably more like it for me because he just needs one little something to push him up there. But I don't think he makes it over any of the 3, potentially 4 other mid-sized knights in the codex for me.
Yeah. There's a lot of knights that do a thing that you want to have, but are 400 and change points. And so, you can't, if you're 3rd or 4th on the list, then you're not making lists. That's just how being a knight works. You could be like the 3rd best knight in the book, which I don't think he is. I think he's like the 4th or 5th best knight in the book, which is still fine, still good, but really has trouble finding a spot over some of the other ones. Like the Errant. Let's talk about the Errant. This one I think is really, really strong.
Yeah, I really like the Errant. I think the buffs she gives you are debatably one of the best in the book. You'll be able to +1 advance and charge, and also have declare a charge when you advance.
Yeah, he makes your armigers go really, really, really fast. In an Imperialis household, he makes your war dogs, because war dogs will be hitting on 2s. They'll be able to generate extra attacks. There's in Imperialis, there's a number of very strong close combat houses, especially Griffith. And at that point, you can really run some people over with war dogs. Or not war dogs; those are Chaos Knights. There's a Chaos Knights game happening in the war room in a couple hours. There will be war dogs there, but Armiger's Warglaives can really start running your opponent over, and Imperialis has Herald as well. So you'll be able to give them that 4-up invuln, and then advance and charge at +2, because Imperialis just does that. And they give +1, the Errant gives another +1, and then you advance and charge, and you just zoom across the board, and you hit people really hard in combat. And so I think that's a build entirely to itself. What do you think, Matt?
So I quite like these with some of the forge-wheeled little guys as well, because you've got one which has a assault 2d6, swim 2, AP 0, damage 3, but it wounds on 2+, unless it's against vehicles.
Yep, the Moirax, yeah.
With the Moirax, and you start running those around, and it's like, okay, cool. It's moving 12, and then you're going super fast because you've got these strats you can use to just go 9 inches. Okay, yeah, it's gone 21 inches, and then it's going to fire these 2d6 when you're on 2s, 3 damage shots at you, and then punch you when you were safe behind the wall.
Yep.
That's really solid.
Yeah. Sorry.
I was just going to say, there's a lot of little units that want to hide around places that can be tricky for knights to get to because they can only move so far, and the big bases trying to charge around things can be a pain. As soon as you've got that advance and charge, gets you into objectives, gets you behind things, really kind of messes with people a little bit.
Yeah, I think Team Australia for WTC was doing something very similar to that.
Yeah, I think they went a bit too heavy into it, but having one or two just unlocks the little flex option there, which is really nice.
Yeah, Necrons really don't love seeing Moiraxes with twin rad cleansers. Like they're not a big fan of it because they get wounded on 2s and then it's like, oh, every failed save is a dead guy.
Yeah.
Those Moiraxes just sprinting at full speed across the board, just flaming everybody. I think they do good work as well, and they've really been. I mean, we'll get to it when we get to the Moirax. It's right here, so we'll get to that. It's like 6th in the line, but I mean, we can address it right now if you want. We can move it up the line. We can do both of them together.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah,
I think the Errant, he just does a lot of cool things, but he kind of, you're not taking it for the Errant, you're taking it for what it does to your whole army.
Yeah, it's a lot more synergy, a lot more buffs, but its main gun still hits really, really hard because it got changed to 2d3 shots, so it's a lot more reliably getting your shots. It's AP 4, it's D6 plus 4 if you're within 15 inches. It hits very hard. You can give it, what I did was I took Tyrannus and I gave it Judgment on its top gun. So it did 2 really good weapons, and then it was getting the Paladin buff from Princeps. And so it was shooting very hard. And then in Imperialis, it makes your army into a very, very fast combat threat that just gets everywhere.
I've been looking at it in more of a free blade build recently, and having like multiple bondsman things running around, having something that can punch mid board once the key threats have gone, and just get those little units with all the weird little buffs you've got everywhere around the board. It's been really nice. So I'd definitely be putting that up at a tournament staple for me.
Yeah, I think for sure. And that leads us to probably their cleanest combo, although Warglaives really do appreciate an Errant as well, would be the Moirax. So Tyrant of Errant says Rad Cleansers hurting Necrons makes 0 sense. I disagree. The reason that I think it does is because I ran triple Magera to an event, and I've paired into things with 2-up armor save, 3 wounds, which is functionally what a Necron in cover is, which is a 2-up armor save with 3 wounds, because 3-up goes to a 2-up in cover. Mageras ignore cover, Moiraxes don't. So what you do into like Custodes at that point is you just pour Rad Cleanser shots into them, and they will roll 1s. And every time they roll a 1, it's just like a very expensive model going to sleep. And
get past that toughness.
Yep. If you take 4 or 5, which I actually don't hate, like 4 or 5 Moiraxes with Rad Cleansers and Claws, and you sprint them at a Necron army, and you just start flaming, they are going to start failing saves. They're going to start losing models, and they lose 1 here, 2 there. It really does suck for them.
Especially once you start getting the buffs on them from the bondsman things. You're like, okay, yeah, you're now -1 damage, and I've got a 4-up invuln. So you run at Wraiths, and they're like, oh, I don't want to be here.
Oh, yeah.
And all of a sudden, you're in combat going, flame, take this. You burn you out of combat so fast.
Scorpex have no defense. Like, -1 to wound, okay, cool. It's still 2s. Yeah, they don't... Tyrant is clarifying that he just meant, fluff-wise, which fair enough. They are robots. Maybe the rad radiation is just that powerful.
We do also have another query here from ZoopDoop for a $2 super chat.
Yep.
Seems consensus is Imperial Knights are better than Chaos Knights. And why?
I don't know if that's the case. To me, they're very equivalent but different. It depends on what you're trying to run into them. I don't know if that's how you feel, Matt.
No, I feel Chaos Knights, you have a lot more variation, a lot more options, because the Chaos faction, you can mix in the Chaos Marines, your demons, a lot easier, and Abaddon just slots in there, provides very different kind of builds that you can do. But I think Imperial Knights, the combination of having the 8-metal obsec, the invuln in combat, the -1 damage, is huge into a lot of the meta at the moment. And I think you're seeing a lot of kind of like Blood Angels, Sisters, Necron Wraiths. Yeah, okay, I've got a 4-up and you're damage 1 now. I don't care about you anymore. It makes it really hard in those matchups. Because I think the same matchups into Chaos Knights, they can do a lot more damage into you a lot earlier.
Yeah.
And the Imperial Knight secondaries are bonkers good.
Yeah,
For
very,
me, they're
very
up there
solid.
with Sisters and Necrons as problems.
Yeah, very, very solid. So you can threaten to outpoints Necrons if they're not careful. You have great objectives secured. I mean, that's an Imperial and Chaos Knight thing.
Yeah.
To me, they're kind of equivalent, but I think Imperial Knights is a little bit harder to deal with, whereas Chaos Knights can bring in help. And Chaos Knights also have if you get shut down by Geist Storm, which is their half charge, must target the closest thing with shooting. If you get shut down by that, then you are going to have a rough time.
Yeah, if just one turn of that going against you, you're like, oh, everything's just sat in the open, doing its thing. This is really going to hurt in return.
Yep, you drop in some things in reserves and then just get told no on the charges, because you got to roll, half your charge range, so you got to roll an 18. You can't do that on 2d6, so get bent. I think they're both very strong and they're both very different, which is an incredibly cool thing to do with data sheets as similar as they are.
Yeah. So coming back to the Moirax then.
Yep.
Would you consider tournament staple, or would you kind of go top of strong choice?
I think I would put it in strong choice. It's made by the Errant. Without the Errant, it doesn't work at all. And even then, it only works in one particular build. It is very good in that build, but I wouldn't put it as staple.
I think you can go without the Errant because it's still a 21-inch threat range, and it's still a pain. It still has good combat. So I don't think the Errant's a must, but there's definitely a massive force multiplier. But yeah, I do think I'd go strong choice. It's not quite I'm writing a list, it's straight in there.
Yeah, the other two Armigers I think will go in tournament staples because they are. But let's talk about, I believe this is the Gallant.
Yes, it looks like it.
A model with, in my opinion, very little roll.
Yeah, its bondsmen's increase your weapon skill by 1, which is nice.
Yeah.
I would just take one with a gun anytime, personally.
Yep. And also what's going to happen a lot of the time is if you're running a melee army that wants a Gallant, you're going to take the +1 to hit oath, chivalric oath at the start of the game. And then the Gallant is rendered completely pointless. Just has +1 attack, which isn't bad. But I want a gun over +1 attack, please.
Yeah, I think anything that you want that model to do, it's like it has a little bit extra speed, but okay, I don't want to be chasing you down to that objective. I want to shoot you off it and charge something else.
Yeah, or even if you are looking to get aggressive, like you're running Imperialis, it just doesn't make sense to run the Gallant. Because you run a gun, you still hit on 2s. The Gallant degrades not as bad if you have +1 to hit. Like, half wounds is still hitting on 2s, but, that's not a really good reason to not just take a gun on it and a different buff. Because a different buff means that, like, maybe it's a Paladin and it makes your Armigers reroll 1s and to hit and wound.
Yeah, I think my main problem with the Gallant in a Knight book is if you do take one over, say, a Paladin or an Errant, it saves you 25 points, 35 points, 40 points, depending what guns you go with. And that gets you a couple of upgrades, but it doesn't get you anything of importance. It's not getting you another model or another unit or something, which in some books I can see an argument for having something like that with combat because it gets you another unit somewhere which fills a role. It's so little extra to take the gun. It just makes no sense not to, I think.
Yeah. To me, I think this is like a top of flawed choice, bottom of perfectly balanced. How do you feel?
Yeah, I'd put it at the top of flawed just because I think if it was 50 points cheaper, or even 30 points cheaper, then you go, okay, this is just a wrecking ball. I can just run it at someone and be a distraction. And then you have to actually think about whether you want the gun or not, because with a few upgrades here and there, you probably can squeeze another model in. But as it sits, it's just not quite ticking the boxes you need it to.
That sounds right. I mean, you can choose between which suite profile you want, which is nice. You know, being able to be strength 10, AP2, damage 3 is great into Necrons. Being able to be strength 8, AP3, damage 2 is great into Armor Contempt. So it's not bad. I think it does need to be cheaper. I agree with you on that. I think it'd be a very interesting unit at 350. Like, it's just dirt cheap for a knight chassis, but you don't get a gun, you don't get like a relevant bondsman oath, because if you're running a combat army, you're probably running +1 to hit natively, so you're hitting on 2s already.
I'd say you probably want like 370-ish, because if you do go like a 4-pin running combat on it at 350, maybe that is a little scary, but then you just shoot with guns, so yeah, I could. And you're taking it away from the other units. So like, it just needs a point drop, and then all of a sudden I could have that debate again about putting it in a list.
Yep. Just here's a chassis, it's running at you, you have to deal with it. I think it'd be very interesting. All right, we've got... it's also, by the way, very good at just doing the action. Renew the oaths. Like, it just runs up and is like 4 or 5 if it's a character.
And then gets tagged because it wants to be in combat.
And then it runs up and just starts bopping.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think that it's a little pointless in combat knights, and in shooting knights it's completely pointless. So I'm not really sure I like it.
The next unit though, I love.
Yes, Helverins are really, 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 really good.
Yeah, I think every list I've ran recently has had at least 3. Hunter the Beast Freeblade, or just Freeblade in general, because you may not want to have the unit not getting the buffs from everyone if you do go for that Hunter Beasts. But I think in the meta where Chaos Knights are a thing and Imperial Knights are a thing and are popular, and all your other big stuff is around and reasonably viable at the moment, 3 of these were Hunter Beasts, and the Bastard Helm is pretty scary.
Yeah. The 3 of them with just Hunters of Beasts, and then you spend 1 CP, which is one of the better strats in the entire game. 1 CP to make 6s to hit auto wound for 3 of them. Together, that kills an enemy knight. Without them +1 to wound, none of that. Just, you're dead.
That strat, I kind of read it at first. I was like, okay, cool. That's okay. Wait, 3 of them for 1 CP is probably a little cheap. It's the first time I read it, I was like, for 1 of them, yeah, that's not too bad. But yeah, it's a very, very good strat. It's probably one I'd use almost every turn.
Yep. And Hunters of Beasts is they hit on 2s. 2 of them are going to have +1 to wound. And against Titanic, they're damage 4. And they still have, and their Iron Hail Stubbers will also get the 6 to hit auto wound and will be damage 2 against Titanic. So they hunt down Titanic models like nobody's business.
And they can't hunt you back because you're shooting from behind, obscuring, and can see them, and they can't see you, which is always fun.
Yep. If you're in the Nightmare and you have 3 of these hiding behind, if you're running Imperium at all, and you have 3 Hunters of Beasts Armigers behind a wall in the backfield, just shooting with that stratagem every turn, you're going to wreck them badly.
Yeah, and I do like they're still fast enough to get the angles onto stuff, because the movement 12 gets you around the board where you need to be.
Yeah, I think these things shoot up top of tournament staple right away, basically.
Yeah, I'd definitely put them at the top there, because
they're also the only unit that I would realistically consider freeblading into other armies.
Yeah, I could see the Warglaives potentially into some armies that want a little bit of pressure, but they don't have it themselves. But these add into so many armies that it's a no-brainer.
They also help other armies out by providing excellent objectives secured, and they're just great in knights. In knights, they're just the long-range shooting threat. They beat other knights pretty badly. Yeah, Hunters of Beasts is insane on them. You can take like a noble combatants army. You can take a Freeblade Lance. You can take a strike and shield. You can take a named house, and then if you just include 3 of these with Hunters of Beasts, look at this. You're good in shooting now too.
Yeah, they just plug the gap that just weight of fire into stuff, and it just scares people. It shuts down those movement lanes because you're just like, Broop, take it off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very solid unit, very solid shooting threat. Doesn't break the bank. Love them. All right, speaking of, but now let's go to something I don't love. Let's talk about the Cerastus Knight Lancer.
So it has a 4-up in combat, and if a big Titanic model goes to hit it, it gets -1 to hit.
Yeah, I mean, it has 26 wounds. Its shooting is incredibly anemic, right?
Oh, it's reasonably fast.
It is. It's got 14 move instead of the 12 that the other Cerastuses have. Its shooting is 18-inch range, AP1, damage D3, 6 shots, strength 6, but still, that's super not good.
Yeah, it's that shooting profile. I read that and go, okay, they've designed it to go into that. Oh wait, no, they've designed it to go in theory into these Titanic, into the big stuff because of its other rules. Why not just make that a 3-shot, strength 9, AP 2, 2d3? So it's like a mini melter gun kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because then it's good into the targets it wants to be good into.
I mean, it's not bad in combat. You can give it the +1 to hit Oath, so you're going to be hitting on 2s. It has an additional attack over the other ones. So if you charged, it could be strength 16, AP4, damage 8, which is good into some things. Like, it's good into Mortarion, but it's not good into others. It's not good into anything that isn't just a big model. Again, into other knights. If you want to mess up other knights, you take this guy, you take 3 Hunters of Beasts Armigers, and you will just wreck through them. But that's outside of into big stuff, into other knights, I just don't think he's that good. I think
even then, having the split profile for if it charged or didn't, just give it one good profile. It's a nice little kind of gimmick there, but I just don't see the need for that, whereas you could just give it something else cool instead of taking up the space on the datasheet.
Yeah, I mean, it does hit hard, but only against some things. And if your opponent doesn't take any of, a single big model where damage 8 rocks them, then it's not nearly as good. It is 440. I don't think it's terrible. I don't think it's in trash tier. I don't think it's next to the Porphyrion. It's 440, and there are some matchups where he will absolutely ragdoll people. Into other knights, he'll run in, rip a knight in half, and he's -1 to hit with a 4-up interval in combat, so they won't really kill him that fast. And either they focus him down, or he literally just rips unit after unit after unit apart. But into anything else, he's kind of doesn't really do it.
I think what I want to do here is I want to move the Gallant down, like in the tier it's in, and put this just above it.
You think this is better than a Gallant?
For what or just below it probably, because it doesn't have the multiple sweep style.
Yeah, if it had sweeps, I could see that, because the Gallant is a threat to legitimately everything in combat, whereas the Lancer runs into a unit of Marines and very regularly will not kill them.
Yeah, it's the same kind of problem it has, that it just trying to do a combat thing, but it doesn't do it into other targets. It just has kind of the one thing it can do into those things.
Yeah. I mean, you can give it the thing where you every 6 you roll does mortal wounds equal to the damage value, and its damage value is 8, right? Because in Imperialis, you can give it the Helm of the Nameless Warrior, and that's a decent combo. And the Lancer will kill things with that. Because if you take it in Griffith, it'll have 6 attacks. It'll, hit on 2s. Every 6 is just 8 mortal wounds anytime it fights. So,
referencing the calculated targeting here?
No, I'm referencing Helm of the Nameless Warrior. It's an Imperialis relic,
Oh.
and it does the same thing.
Yes, it's just the combat style.
Yep. But it has to be Questoris or Imperialis Armiger class, so never mind. Psych, you can't take Helm of the Nameless Warrior. But you can still make it 6 attacks and hits on 2s. That's alright.
Yep. Now we get something fun, at least.
Now we get something fun. We get... I can't really see the gun. Yeah, this is the Magera, and the other one's the Styrix.
Yes.
Yes. So the Magera has traditionally been the good one.
Until this codex came along.
Yeah, the Magera hits. A lightning cannon is no joke at all. And you can give it, you can, in Tyrannus or whatever, you can take, or Mechanicus, you can take a Princeps, Paladin to give it reroll once hit and wound. It ignores cover. The lightning cannon absolutely bangs. Absolutely bangs.
So, have you messed around with it much since Armor Contempt came out?
I haven't. I haven't actually... No, I did play a practice game, not into Armor of Contempt.
Because it is only AP2.
It is only AP2.
Which is a big swing now, I think. Into
Yes,
a lot of
it is. It absolutely is. There are some armies where it will have trouble. Any kind of Terminator in cover will... I mean, cover doesn't matter, but any kind of... Well, cover doesn't matter means that a lot of times Terminators are going to get 3-ups. And every time they fail a save, they're going to lose a model. I could see that working, but yeah, it's not amazing.
Yeah, I think that's one of the... This architect, it's made so many little things. You kind of like, this is... has potential to, rather than just is anymore. So I think that's a big hit because it's not great AP. You do get a lot of fun stuff on it, and its combat is solid.
Yeah, it is Questoris class, so you can actually take relics on it. And taking Heart of Ion on it bops. It gets +1 move. I think there's something else. +1 advance, charge, move, which is good because this thing hits hard in combat. And then whenever you make an attack with a weapon, you pick a weapon at the start of the phase. Every time you make an attack with that, you get +1 to wound. So it's lightning cannon at reroll 1s to hit and wound and +1 to wound. Does just like core out a lot of units when it hits.
Yeah, I think for me this is definitely a strong choice.
Yeah, for sure. It's expensive.
Probably bottom end of that as it sits, because it does have a 5-up in one as well, which is huge.
Yeah, in combat, which is a big deal. Yeah.
All the time.
I think it's good. It's just a little vulnerable potentially to Armor of Contempt. Twin Rad Cleansers plus a Lightning Cannon is a lot of damage 3. So even if Terminators get decent saves against it, they're going to have to take a lot of them turn after turn after turn. And if they fail, they're just going to pick a guy up.
Similar to the little Moirax we mentioned before.
Yeah.
You just roll some ones. Because every one hurts when it's a decent number of shots with the option of exploding to additional hits there. You just go, cool, take 10 saves. And, oh, look, you rolled 3 ones. Cool, it's 3 Custodes dead.
Yep. It just happens. It just happens. Now, the main thing against it, I think, is it's 500 points. So it is as expensive as a kitted out Crusader. It doesn't have a Bondsman Oath. But with Heart of Ion and Princeps put on it, it does hit super hard. Very, very, very hard.
I think that for me is mainly why it's at the bottom below like the Crusader and stuff, just because it's a one-man wrecking ball, but it doesn't kind of do the rest of the stuff you want the army to do.
Yeah, probably if I were to include it, I would take Heart of Ion, and I would take the upgrade to make it basically a Princeps, where it knows a chant and can chant. Turn it into a mentor, Master of Lore, I believe it's called. And then that's pretty good. It's a little expensive.
Yeah, like you did see a lot of armies running 3 previously. I don't think you'd see that anymore. But 1 definitely you could make a strong argument to include.
Absolutely. I think you could make a strong argument to include 1. 3 still hits hard, but you just don't have very much stuff at the end of the day after that. All right, let's take a look. I believe this is the Paladin.
Yes,
That's the Paladin.
The Gatling gun is further along, second to the end, it looks like.
Yep, that's what I was checking
the
too.
fist base, yeah.
So the Paladin has the best Bonds on Oath buff, in my mind.
Oh yeah, especially if you're running like a free blade thing, or you start off down the chivalric oath, which the name is Refusion of Challenge, because all of a sudden, as soon as you're honoured, when you get charged or heroic, you get +1 to hit. So once you're buffing 2-3 Warglaives up, okay, cool. They're now hitting on 2s and reroll 1s to hit and wound.
And you can do that turn 1, and then as soon as you get Valorous, whatever, as soon as you get 5 points, you can give it to 3 with the Uphold the or Defend the Realm. Yes. So you can give that out to 3 of them, and then
protect those in need to do 3.
Yeah.
But you can also do 3, make 1 permanent, send it running off somewhere, and then it's just a pain to shift.
Yeah. The reroll 1s to hit and 1s to wound is just a great buff to put on anything, especially things that are as reroll starved as knights, because knights don't get rerolls generally. And it's just a great way to hand out a bunch of rerolls. It's great if it's a Princeps. It's great if it isn't. Its gun is okay. You can give it Heart of Ion to make it shoot harder. You don't have to. You can give it, Sanctuary to make it a little more durable up close. I think something wants Sanctuary for sure. So
I'm not sure on Sanctuary. I'd much rather have the 4 up against shooting on this guy.
Really?
Because
you can have both.
I'm assuming you're taking one of the big guys to be your big main bondsman buff. And if you're doing that, you don't really want them out in the middle of the thick of it, taking risks into things where you need that invuln. Because if it goes wrong, you lose all of your buffs. You're probably losing a couple of your honor points. You're losing all your bondsman abilities. You're losing any permanent ones you've made. So I think you can run a little bit more defensive and reactive rather than gung-ho.
That's true. That's true. I do think eventually you'll probably have to use him in some kind of capacity. I don't want him to die right away. I think somebody wants to have Sanctuary. Like, if the Errant has Sanctuary, I think a big boy wants it, because that way it doesn't immediately melt in combat.
Yeah, I think if you've got both, you probably want the Errant with it, because they gain more out of being up close. The melting gets a lot more efficient.
That's true.
Whereas the Paladin, up close or far away, shooting is doing the same thing, and the combat is the same on both there. So I think if you take 2, 1 would be my more defensive buff piece with the probably extra honor point buffs as well, and then the other a little bit more board control style.
Yeah, I really like the Paladin. I think it's up there in tournament staple, just ahead of the Errant.
Yeah, I'd agree with that 100%.
It's just a phenomenal unit, honestly, in the book. Kind of thought that it, reroll 1s hit and wound wouldn't really be worth it when the book came out, and I put it in the list and I tried it out and I was like, oh, this seems good, and then it's still just solid, really good.
Yeah. I do think if it wasn't for the power of the smaller knights, they'd probably drop down a tier.
Yeah,
because they just don't do quite enough in their own right for their points, but what they do for the army is fantastic.
I think that's right, yeah, because Armiger spam is a lot better than... It plays 40k the way 40k should be played, which is you control the board and you try and spread out and go wide rather than just trying to jam like 3 or 4 beat 6 down your opponent's throat. And in those kind of builds, the Paladin and the Errant are king. All right, let's talk about this is the big one. This is the Porphyrion, I believe.
Yes, this is the one that sits in a corner and goes, please don't fall off the edge of the board, because this is where I want to be, and I will shatter into a million pieces if I do.
Yep. It has 2 autocannons that can be changed out for las cannons. Cool. Iron Storm Missile Pod, 2 twin Magna las cannons. And these things are 2 D3 shots apiece at strength 12, AP 3, damage 6, blast, 72 inch range. Yeah, I mean, that's a good profile in a
scary.
gun. That's 2 of them is 8 shots on average, it's strength 12, AP 3, damage 6. I mean, damage 6 is a lot, but, you know, the Errant's gun is D6 plus 4. Reach Productions, the second speaker is Matt Robertson, and he is Art of War coach over across the pond.
I was just about to type out that it was you, Jack. You're the one everyone doesn't recognise. So everyone knows me.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one. I should have introduced myself. Damn it. Yes, my name's Jack. I'm on Art of War. Hi.
My name's Matt. I'm a 40k addict.
Yeah, aren't we all?
Yes, it's a problem.
All right, so the Porphyrion is crazy expensive. It is 780 points. If you give it the twin las cannons instead of the twin auto cannons, it's 790. And it's a clean 800 if you give it its Helios defense missiles, which are 2 shots of strength 8, AP 2, damage 3, and then +1 to hit against aircraft. And being 800 points is just not acceptable. Like, flat not acceptable.
The only question for me now is it above or below the other similar size knight we've got down there?
The Asterius? This is hard, because the Asterius, I think it's better than the Asterius, because the Asterius is a little cheaper, but it doesn't shoot unless you are, like, on the next table over to your opponent.
Yes.
So I do think...
That's a good point.
Yeah. Because it needs to get far away from you for its guns to do work, because they're conversion beams. And over 48 is the only time when it's actually better than the Porphyrion, and over 48 in shooting just doesn't happen in 40k anymore.
Yes, I'd definitely above that then.
Okay. All right. Well, those are the important questions.
I don't think it makes forward choice, because I think it just has too much wrong with it.
It's like 800 points. I mean, I could make an entirely separate tier in between the two of these, and these are just in the why are you even playing 40k with these models tier. Because
you played Heresy and they're really cool in that, and then want to roll some dice in the next version of the game.
Fair enough. Right. All right, we got ourselves a Preceptor. The basic Preceptor. The basic Preceptor compared to Canis Rex is lacking a little something. Although in most households he can take an Exalted Court upgrade, and Canis Rex can only do that in a Freeblade Lance. But I don't think that a Preceptor is actually that important. What about you?
I think it's probably going to sit after this chat with the Canis Rex, because they're fine. They do some cool things, but all of your bondsman abilities are basically these buffs that are slightly better and you don't need to roll for, and you do more of them.
Yeah.
Because if you had these same upgrades on different guns, so if you could kind of make the Preceptor not have the gun it's stuck with, I'd be a lot more intrigued by it.
Yeah, D6 shots is just not good enough. Like, fully not good enough.
Yes, so I think that's where I'd go with that one. And
you think down here in Perfectly Balanced?
Yeah, because there's nothing massively wrong with them. They just don't quite do as much as the others do.
Yeah. Yeah, they give out buffs, but they really don't do anything past that. And their buffs are, like, fine. They're fine.
Yeah, they do some, like, okay things. So I'll quickly skim through what they can do in case people are kind of trying to work out what knights do watching this as well. You can get an Armiger class model on a hit roll of 6. It does an additional. Okay. That's nice on a Helverin, potentially.
Yeah. Exploding 6s to hit aura is legitimately good.
Yeah. Like, count as having extra honor points, but it's on Armigers, so they don't get massive benefits from it. You can make a model 8 offset, potentially. Run it in somewhere. That's fun. Move and shoot, doing actions. That's nice, but because you do want to do the action a lot of the time. But normally there's enough things hidden around that losing one night shooting isn't really too much of an issue. You get a 5-up Feel No Pain, or if you're under a bondsman ability. Again, it's nice, but does it really make the model worth everything else it's doing? Then you get to do select one oath that's not active, and you can kind of do those things.
Yeah.
That can come in useful. Nice little tech things, because you can tech into that to get your boost onto certain things where your opponent doesn't quite work it out. Or you can kind of go, oh, actually, yeah, this one's going to go to this tree and all of a sudden do this, and opens up some extra plays. Yeah, and then you get model with a bondsman. Both count as having the bondsman ability.
Yep.
That's nice, but normally you can get 2 or 3 anyway. So none of those are bad. They're all good things.
Yeah, it's largely that I think bondsman oaths are 12-inch range, and a lot of these are 6-inch, and that 6-inch range is just too. Your army doesn't want to be clustered together like that most of the time. I think that's the biggest thing. Your army doesn't want to all be within 6 inches of one knight. It kind of wants to have like 2 guys within 12 inches of a knight, and then otherwise spreading out. And I think that's mostly what holds the Preceptor back, because his buffs are good. So it's the fact that knights really don't, I think, operate as a big ball, or want to. So I'm pretty happy with it in the center of perfectly balanced like that. Let's get to the last Forge World Knight on the list, the Questoris Knight Styrix. Okay, so this one is a little weird. It is the brother to the Magera. Yep. It also ignores cover. It also has a 5-up invul and save in combat, which is a big deal. It can also take a Hecaton Siege Claw with a Twin Rad Cleanser, which is very good. It has a Graviton Crusher, which is instead of the twin phased, the phased plasma fusel. So instead of having a rapid fire 2 plasma gun, basically, has a D3 shot, strength 6, AP 3, damage 2 with Graviton. So it's like, it's going to be a Graviton weapon. So it's going to be damage 3 against armor 3 or better. So that's a decent gun.
It's a decent AP.
Decent AP, AP3, ignores cover, very solid. You're probably going to take the Hecaton Siege Claw with the Twin Rat Cleanser, because I believe that is free, same as on the Magera. And then, I'll check that out. It is cheaper than the Magera. It's cheaper by 25 points, and it has the Volkite Chirovile, or Chiroville, not sure. 45-inch range. 45-inch range. 45, heavy 5, strength 8, AP 3, damage D6, wound rolls of 6 do 2 mortal wounds in addition. That gun is not nearly as good as the lightning cannon, in my mind. It has additional AP, but it has way fewer shots, because it has 5 instead of 8, and then it doesn't have every 6 to hit is 3 hits. It just, if you roll 6s to wound, which you're probably going to do like 1, maybe none, every time you shoot it, fine. Its damage is D6.
That's
fine.
The big thing.
It's going to hit on 3s. It's going to wound on 3s. If you get 2 wound rolls, if you get 2 saves your opponent has to take, meh. I'm just very not impressed by the Chiroville, whereas I am very impressed by the lightning cannon. So
yeah, I think if it was, say, like 6 shots with D3 plus 3 damage or something like that, you'd be like, I like this, because it's just running around. Well, maybe not 6. Maybe even lose 1 shot, but get D3 plus 3 damage. Obviously, it's running around with multiple las cannon. That's pretty handy, and it has the option of shooting into little squads, because you can roll those 6s and just do the mortals to pick up bits and pieces and finish things off. But its combat's nice. It has lots of little guns which help on the side. But so I don't think it's bad. It just that gun.
You're paying 25 points for you're paying 25 points less than a Magera to make the lightning cannon significantly worse, in my mind.
Would you say it's worse enough to drop it down from being a strong choice?
I think so. I think it's still like the top of perfectly balanced, but I think the main gun being that much worse is just I just don't think it's good enough. It's so random, because you don't have rerolls to hit and you don't have rerolls to wound unless you use the Princeps. And even there, it's very realistic that you only get like one save on your opponent, or two when they pass one. And then you're doing d6 damage with a 475 point model. And it still has the combat, and it still has the twin red cleanser, so it's not terrible. But the gun is significantly worse than the lightning cannon.
You could say that gun's probably not massively better than either the Preceptor or Canis Rex then.
Yeah, it's about the same, honestly.
More other stuff, potentially.
Hold on. Its output is definitely better than the Princeps and Canis Rex. Because instead of a D6 shotgun, it is a 5 shotgun. And it does mortal wounds. And, you know, its combat is better and has a twin rad cleanser as well. So it's way better at doing damage than the Princeps. I mean, than the Preceptor or Canis Rex.
But they do more of the stuff.
They do more of the stuff.
Yeah, I think, like we said, the other stuff they do isn't probably good enough to push it up over the damage, but it's definitely a consideration. If you get to kind of that choice, you're like, okay, yeah, I could look into having these buffs over that.
Yeah. I think the Styrix is fine. I don't have a problem with the Styrix. It's just a little expensive for what you get, I think, because I love the lightning cannon, and if you don't have the lightning cannon, you can get bent. Yeah. We are done with Forge World. The highest Forge World model would be the Magera and the Moirax, which I'm sure should surprise nobody. And then the Styrix, and then a big drop, and then everything else is in flawed choice. Snivar says he's heard rumors that I'm a Drukhari player now, and tell them it's not true. It is true. I played Drukhari to Crucible a couple days ago, and yeah, it was fun. I decided I had to wait a full year after they were broken in order to play them, but I had a good time. You know, just going to a local event, you know, not taking it too seriously. Still went 5-1, lost to John in the last round, 5-0 going to the last round. It was a fun army. It was a lot of boats, a lot of flamers, a lot of combat, a lot of speed. It was cool. It was a cool time. But I think I'm done with that now. I think I'm moving on. Is
that because it wasn't Triple Tantalus?
We unfortunately, due to issues, I would have run Triple Tantalus if we had the models there in time. But there was a hurricane, and we were stuck in Orlando, and the Tantali are up here in the Stream House, and it just didn't end up happening, unfortunately. But I would have if we could have gotten the Tantali there. But I will be playing Triple Tantalus tomorrow on stream on YouTube. Looking forward to that. Playing that into Siegs' Grey Knights. He will be tantalized.
That will be interesting because he's been destroying Nick too many times recently with those.
Yeah, exactly. So I gotta hop on the Drukhari train to push him back. All right, let's talk about the Valiant.
So
get my book out.
Right where we've got that big other knight in the Castellan, I think just below that is where we should slap this guy in. I
think flawed choice is a good place to put it because it does not have the business.
I think again, if Armor Contempt wasn't everywhere, it makes its configuration cannon heavy 3d6 strength 7 -2 2 auto hits. Give that AP 3. You're like, I could take this guy. This is 3d6 is a good amount of shots.
Yeah.
Until you roll triple 1.
3d6 is a reliable number of shots. It auto hits, so you skip the fact that you don't reroll hits. But strength 7 AP2 damage 2 is just kind of pathetic and do a lot of things. You have a harpoon that only shoots at 18 inches, and it's one shot. So, like, you could just fail to hit, or you fail to wound, or they pass an invuln or something. It's basically a hammerhead railgun that they get to take invulns from, and that sounds terrible. And it has a bunch of other guns too, but it is also 600 points.
Yeah. And it has some combat, which is...
No, it doesn't. Nope.
Like, yeah?
Yeah.
You think this big harpoon, they could just go drill in someone's face? No. It's kicking about. It's like... What makes me chuckle as well is you go, like, the relic version of the Flamer, puts it to 3d6 strength 8 -2 2, and it has a cool rule that on a 6 to wound, you can't take invulns against it. but it's still only AP2.
Yep. So that is good into like legitimately just Harlequins.
It puts Wraiths on a 5.
Yeah. Sure.
There's some straws I'm clutching at here. But yeah, I think it needs 3d6 is nice when you get the average, but when you roll below the average, you're wasting several hundred points.
Yeah.
The harpoon, as you said, if it was similar to the hammerhead, where it just goes boom, it makes it a real problem because most big stuff has an invuln that are running up to it. And again, it's just too many points. I think it doesn't do enough compared to the Castellan for not too dissimilar points. It'll be able to just sit and have the firepower, and it doesn't have the combat at all to kind of make up for that.
Yeah, it needs combat. I would agree. I mean, the problem is that Castellan is supposed to thematically shoot from far away, and the Valiant's supposed to shoot from up close. The problem is that Castellan shoots harder than the Valiant inside 18 inches and further away than 18 inches. And that's kind of was the problem last edition, or last version of the book too, was the Castellan shot harder no matter how far away you were. So I'm not sure why they did that again. They could have made the Thunder Coil Harpoon just like you die. You know, they could have just made it ignores invulns like AP7, so the armor content doesn't even think about it.
Caps, all that kind of stuff.
Something like that. If you get hit by this thing, you should know. And then the conflagration cannon should be like strength 8, AP3, damage 2, or something like that. And that would be pretty decent up close. Like, that's something you don't want to get hit by. Rule of Cool, for sure, Tyrant of Ruin, it's top tier, but...
Yeah. Like, it's great fun to use, but then you use it and go, it's not doing what I thought it would. Oh.
Yeah, 600 points is a lot of points. So, for a guy who doesn't... just is definitively worse at every range bracket than the Castellan, I want to put it in flawed choice.
Yeah, I could put it in there because if you just have something that's just better than it, and you're not going to consider it because of that, you can't really argue with that because it's flawed. It's trying to do a role that it doesn't quite do.
Yeah. All right, we're down to the last two. We got a Warden here. Probably... I think it's better than a Gallant, but I think it's worse than the other ones. Its Bondsman Oath is okay. It makes an Armiger count as 10 models for controlling objectives, which is fine, except you tend to swarm objectives with like 3 Armigers. And
it's nice being able to put something else on. That's going to I'll put 1 here, that's 10, and then 2 can go this way, 2 can go this way. So I like that more if you're taking another big knight, potentially.
If you're not taking a Crusader, I do like Endless Fury on it. It's a very good gun. Endless Fury, I believe, is 12 plus D6 shots. It's been a hot second since I included, but it's also AP3, which is the main reason I like it. Endless Fury.
D6 plus 12.
D6 plus 12.
AP3, 2 damage.
So it's D6 extra shots every time you shoot, and an additional point of AP, which is exactly what the gun needs.
But that could be a Crusader.
Could be.
Anyway.
Could be.
You do get the combat, which is nice. So I could definitely see arguments for taking this. I just think all the other Bondsman abilities are better.
Yeah.
So and it's definitely not flawed.
It is on the more expensive end of like the Paladin, Errant, Warden combo. Like that one gun, one combat weapon, Bondsman Oath ability. It is on the more expensive end. It's 440 as opposed to the other one's 420, which is a bit odd. It's got the worst Bondsman Oath. I don't think there's a lot of question about that. It has the best gun if you give it Endless Fury, but the Errant might shoot harder. It depends on the target you're looking at.
Yeah, I think it's comparable weapon-wise, and I think that the Strength 6 damage 2 AP2 profile now is okay. Like, if it was hitting on 2s, I'd be like, oh, okay, this is. But as soon as you've got anything with -1 to hit, you go, I've got 12 shots, I hit 6 times, wound 3 times, maybe 4, and cool.
Yeah.
Yep, that's good.
Yeah, it's just, it needs to be buffed in order for it to be good at doing damage, and I just don't want to put my buffs on a Warden. Its Bonds and Oath is mediocre. Like, its gun is still better than the Preceptor's by a lot, especially with Endless Fury. I would probably put it below the Styrix, maybe above the Styrix, and perfectly balanced.
I'd put it above just because it has Bondsman.
Yeah.
And not because of what its Bondsman is, but because of what that unlocks.
It just unlocks -1 damage on an Armiger, which is great.
Yeah, but you can combo with Herald as well. All of a sudden you've got a 4-up invuln and -1 damage, which is tasty.
It is very tasty. It's not bad. It's certainly not bad. Endless Fury helps out a lot. Yeah. Like, Endless Fury does so much work on that. I think you need Endless Fury, and you can take Herald to give out the 4-up invulns, and that's not bad. And then, as Tyrant of Ruin says, you can take Blessed by the Sacristan, so you have a heavy flamer, you take a heavy stubber, you maybe take a top gun, and you just put out a lot of shots, and you try and proc Blessed by the Sacristan as much as possible. It's not bad. I think it just needs... It's inexplicably more expensive than the Paladin and the Errant to me.
Yeah, I don't know why you're paying extra for that gun when it's very comparable. I think it's because you get 12 shots.
Yeah.
But they're worse. So, like, if those 3 models were the same points, you'd be going, okay, there's a fair argument for any of them there.
Yeah, I think I'd want it to be like 410 or 400 clean.
Yeah.
Or compared to the Paladin and the Errant, because its Bondsman Oath is much worse. But its gun is decent.
That's it. And then rounding us up, we have...
Warglaives.
Probably going in the very top, I think.
Yeah, I think it, right at the bottom of Torment Staple is a good place to put it.
You see, I'd actually put these above the Big Knights.
I could see that.
Definitely run an army with all the little knights, and a lot of the bonuses you get from the Big Knights are what they do for your small knights. I think I'd have them below the Helverin, because, as we said before, Helverin go into a lot of Imperial armies really, really well, and they kind of slot in everywhere, whereas the Warglaives are fantastic in the Imperial Knights, but not as good as Free Blades in other armies, potentially. Yeah,
for sure. I think they're very similar. John really likes the Warglaives. I've been let down a little bit by them, but in a combat army, they're really strong, because you get, in Griffith, you get 5 attacks sitting on 2s. It's just like, okay, that's really good. And then if you take the reroll a hit or a wound, their thermal spears become very... they become very reliable. Thermal, you're rerolling a hit or a wound, you roll them, you see if you need to reroll the hit or if you need to reroll the wound, and you just drop consistent damage on people. They're pretty solid.
Yeah, they just add the reliability, and I think you can just go mass of those with some Helverin backup. You probably wouldn't go a massive Helverin with a few of those backup, because that combat is definitely a thing you need in the game at the moment. Yeah,
you need to be able to push people back.
But for me, I've had massive success recently with kind of 6 or 7 Warglaives, 3 or 4 Helverin, and one of the 2 Big Knights on the top row. But you definitely can go multiple of the Big Knights and few more of smaller ones. But I just think you want more pieces to play the game with. If you're running the Knight list that just has 4 Big Knights, you're probably going to struggle to play the mission as much, because a lot of players kind of just go, oh, I'm playing Knights, I'm just going to pin you in, stop you moving out where you want to be, and you want models that can sit and just do your secondaries and not worry about, I'm going to lose all the shooting from this guy. Cool, this Warglaive's going to sit in the middle, get you 3 points a turn, maybe 4 if you make it a character. Job done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're very good. You need something on the front lines to hold objectives, to to do secondaries, and it doesn't make sense to put Helverins up there. Absolutely. So Warglaives are like the tip of the spear, as it were, and they just like run in, they do what you need them to do, they slug it out. Chain sweep on them is very good. It makes them 12 attacks at strength 6, AP, I want to say 3.
I think it's slightly better because you can combo that with some other cool things as well.
Yeah, in Griffiths it's 15 attacks with the sweep. Griffith combat army could be very interesting, could be very exciting to try to run. It is strength 6, AP 3, damage 1 with 2 hit rolls, so ordinarily that would be 8. In Griffith that would be 10. And with Chain Sweep, that would be 12 or 15. Griffith is like the premier melee house, although you could also run Strike and Shield to be more defensive.
You also have the opportunity of putting 2 knights into something and then using the extra attack stratagem as well.
Yep, absolutely.
That way, then doing a sweep and just going.
I could see you getting 20 attacks off a Warglaive if you really, really, really tried. And that's a lot. Or you take the Strike profile, which is just good at chopping through people. Yes. Especially if you have noble combatants, right? The Strike profile becomes very reliable at just doing its damage.
Yeah, it just kind of ensures you're going to get through things when you need to. And it just scares people, especially once you get all the buffs on them. They can go toe-to-toe with a lot of things. Especially, you can combo with the Trans-Hitman. Go up to a Bloodthirster and go, I'm going to spend 1 CP to rotate because I've got transhuman, sorry. Then you go, you hit me on 4s, you wounded me on 4s, I've got a 4-up invuln and -1 damage. Cool.
Yeah, we're going to sit here for a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you stay here and just give me hugs for now, and then the rest of my friends will come and help me in a minute.
Yep. Or the rest of your friends like table the rest of their army, and then you cycle back around to dealing with the knight at a later date.
Yes.
Yeah, or to dealing with the Bloodthirster. Yeah, I think Warglaives and Helverins are both the core of any list, and then you take Paladins and Errants to match. The rest of the list feels like something you can splash in. Like Strong Choice, it's like, oh, do you want a one piece that shoots really, really hard? Okay, you can splash in a Crusader, or you can splash in a Magera, or if you go around a particular build, you might be able to fit in some Moirax with Twin Lightning. Twin Lightning locks for sure. They got a little more expensive though. Or Twin Rad Cleanser and Hecaton Claws.
Yeah, there's loads of little bits you can just flex in there that aren't bad choices. Like even some of the flawed choices, you'll get results with. They'll do something, but then as you go further up this list, everything there just does it more efficiently.
Yeah, and it's all self-contained. You don't really need anything that's lower than tournament staple here. But you can include it, but you don't need it. And in Knights, if you don't need it, you probably don't end up including it because everything's so expensive.
Yeah, that's kind of where I think Chaos Knights have a little bit more weirdness because you can mix in more bits and pieces. Whereas Imperial Knights, you're going to get a little bit more uniform in lists potentially.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have more of a mix of the top stuff. But then Knights are just fun. So you can just go, cool, I'm just going to run a couple of other things from further down than tournament staples, and you'll still do well with them. So it's not like you're terrible choices apart from maybe the bottom 2.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I had a good time doing this. First tier list Tuesday for Matt Robbo.
I've done Tyranids as well. Second one now.
All right, second one. My bad. First one with me, though.
Oh, yeah. The best one so far.
Oh.
Because you're... Yeah. Don't tell John I said that.
I will. All right. Well, we got a game coming up in the War Room, just over an hour. We've got, I believe it's Genestealer Cults versus Chaos Knights, something we were talking about a little earlier. Should be very exciting to watch. And
is that Nick on the Genestealer Cult again this time?
That is. He's trying out something, trying out shooting heavy GSC and seeing if he can make that work. So I think that'll be very interesting to see. If you're a member of our War Room, you can just tune in and watch that. Or if you are not, you just go to our website, theartofwar40k.com, and you can become a member.
It is also half price first month membership offer at the moment.
That's
if anyone
right.
who's on the fence wants to try it out, for the amount of content that's there, because you can go back through the catalogue as well into a lot of the videos that have been on recently, might have caught your attention. It's definitely worth checking it out, just giving it a go. And if you don't like it, fair enough, it's the price of a beer or two.
Absolutely. But if that doesn't strike your fancy, just please leave us a like, comment, subscribe to our channel, anything to let us know that you like the content we produce. We should do more of it. Let other people know that we produce this kind of content if this is the sort of thing you enjoy. We just really appreciate it, and we appreciate you watching along with us. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Goodbye.
There's so many rules in 40k, hundreds of events, and constant updates. Skip the learning curve of Warhammer and join the pros. Art of War is led by multiple world champions with decades of success. We teach clinics, stream games, and inspire you to succeed at your favorite hobby. Join our global community of gamers just like you.